I'm very fortunate to introduce our great Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul. Kathy knows, as a Lieutenant Governor, she knows that all politics and business is local, and everything and everyone matters, from our seniors to our children and everyone in between. She understands serving in a local capacity, whether it was the Hamburg Town Board or County Clerk of Erie County, or even as a Congresswoman. She was sworn in earlier this year as the 77th Lieutenant Governor, State of New York. She chairs one of the most important, and I say one of the most important, regional economic committees of Governor Cuomo, Regional Economic Development Council. What can you say about this highly successful woman? Well, the secret is, believe it or not, she lives here on Long Island. Well, in what she does up in Albany, she makes us here live on Long Island a lot better. All the hard work that she does in Albany and all the work that she does around the state, she sits with us and making sure that she's a great listener, a great public service and an advocate. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul.
Well, I feel like a resident of Long Island, Bob, so as long as I don't have to start paying taxes, that'd be a good thing. But thank you so much for that introduction. We had a chance to get to know each other last year when I was on the journey toward elective office as a statewide official. So thank you for your friendship, and the governor appreciates that as well. And Senator Martin and others, thank you. I know you've spoken before, but I'm looking forward to continuing the strong relationship that has been built in a bipartisan way to keep this state moving forward with our partners in the Senate, the Assembly, and our governor. So it's been great to see a whole new era in state government since my time many years ago as a local official. And Eric, I just want to tell you, I love the phrase vision, but when you look in the dictionary and you see your name, it's got to have the word visionary next to it, because truly, this is your 14th annual summit. I can't tell you how important it is to keep convening the movers, the shakers, the thought leaders, the people in this room, and the people who've been listening to speakers all day long. And you're probably a little tired of hearing other voices, so I will not have a long presentation. But you are just living proof that leadership matters, that one person on a mission can bring others because through the sheer force of will. So I want to give you a huge round of applause, if you haven't had tons of them already today, for what you do for this area. Like I said, I've had over 40 visits to Long Island since elective office. Please don't tell the rest of the state. They get a little jealous. It's like being the parent of a big family here. But I really felt it was important to really immerse myself in your many, many local governments, because I am a local government official, and I think you'll never take that out of me. That's really the core of who I am. And I have such respect for your supervisors and your mayors, because I've actually met many of them over the last year and walked your streets and allowed me to see your communities through your eyes. I would just call up and say, tell me what's important to you. Let's go walk those projects. Let's go see them. And I've really, really enjoyed that. I do have an appreciation also because of 14 years as a local official, which is really a phenomenally long time in our area. There's a lot of turnover in elective office where I come from, but I had served as an attorney for Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, sort of cut my teeth in government down in Washington. But when it came time to raise a family, there was no place like home. I needed to come back to the state of New York, and really had no intention of ever running for office. I was the behind-the-scenes person, policymaker, the one who told other people what to say. And I thought that was good enough. And all of a sudden, I come back to the small town that I had grown up in, that used to have little mom and pop shops, the men's store, the women's clothing store, the flower shops. And after we lost a huge industry, and this is where I see some parallels with what had happened in Long Island, we lost Bethlehem Steel, and 20,000 jobs are gone almost overnight, and my community collapsed. It was heartbreaking to come back where I wanted to raise my kids and let them have the same experiences of knowing the values of growing up in a small town where community really matters. And I felt that we were at risk of losing that. So I started going to town board meetings. I used to bring petitions from my neighbors and talk about how we can, does this development really have to go here? Can't we preserve this over here? And I was always fighting for the heart and soul of my community, and I felt I was losing the battle. So I just decided I could do more on the inside. Against my instincts at the time, I said, you know what, I can't keep complaining. I've got to get on the inside. So I ran for local office and served 14 years, and that took me on an amazing journey to really have a full breadth of understanding of the challenges and the pressures, the development pressures that are pulling, and the desire to have an expanded tax base, but also saying we can't lose our identity. We do not want to just become this faceless piece of suburbia that if you got off the throughway anywhere, you'd feel like there's no identity here. So I fought for that, and I fought a lot of battles. I challenged state government constantly. I can't tell you how many times the state DOT would see me walk in their office like, oh man, she's not back again, because it was important, because sometimes I just felt I needed to educate them that what you're thinking about doing in Albany is going to be harmful in my small town. And even a place, it was kind of our local Cheers, where all of us used to hang out and have our beers at the local Irish pub. They had a plan to go right through, we'd tear it down to straighten out a road and tear down my version of Cheers in my hometown. And I went down and said, okay, I didn't want to have to do the bulldozer thing, but I will be in front of that bulldozer. I mean, you cannot do this. So if you go back to my town today, you may wonder why there's an incredible curve in the road around J.P. Fitzgerald's, but we succeeded. And I have to give the people in DOT the credit for listening to us. And I had not seen that for a long time, and I felt that that was a healthy change in attitude about how we could be better partners. And even when DOT was going to do a major reconstruction project through our downtown, our little businesses were petrified. They were already dealing with a Walmart that was coming to town, which was scaring the heck out of all the small businesses. That's just a fact of life. We had seen what had happened in other areas. And I actually had battled this project, and I realized I was not going to win because zoning was not on my side. But I went in and talked to the people at Walmart, and I said, okay, if you're coming to my town, there's traffic studies that have to get done. I may need to study them for the next 7 or 8 years, or you can actually have your Walmart go where we want it and look like we want it. And this is very foreign language to them. I will tell you, they looked at me like, yeah, for sure, this is not going to happen. We persevered, and I just want to share the story. I remember sitting down in a restaurant with executives from Walmart, sketching out on a napkin, saying, I want you to look like this. And they said, what are you talking about? I said, you need to fit into the character of my community. You want to go near this nice country club we have across the street, which is Georgian, it's brick, it's got these white pillars. And if you want to fit into my town, you're going to have pillars, you're going to eat brick, and you're going to look like you fit into the community. They laughed for a little bit until I brought up the traffic studies again. And I never forget going to the ribbon cutting and the executives from Northeast Walmart saying, we really are, we want you to know you've got the most beautiful Walmart in the Northeast, and we hate you because now everybody else wants to have us do this as well. So, but I thought, you know what, it's just an example, thank you, where you really need to exercise all the tools at your disposal. The zoning, the planning, but you can't always say no when you want to say no, and you have to be realistic about getting the accommodations we need, because we do need to support our government services. You need to have jobs. You need to have jobs in your communities. But it's all about pulling together the talent, as this summit does, and saying, how can we move forward together? And then you will succeed. And that's something I get to do as chairperson of the statewide regional economic development councils. And what I love about what the governor has done, he has turned economic development in the state of New York upside down. I mean, like I said, I watched state government from afar for a long time. We used to complain all the time. Unfunded mandates, and I know the drill. I know it's on your minds, elected officials, I know. But this governor got it. He got it very quickly. And he says, we do not need the bureaucrats in Albany telling a community their destiny, how they should look, and what they should do. It just doesn't work that way. It's not worked for the last few decades. Let's just stop doing it. So creating the regional economic development councils, putting all the stakeholders from a community, what we bring together academia, we bring together labor, we bring together business leaders, we bring together not-for-profits, and pull them together and say, here's a competition. If you get your act together and stop fighting county to county, and I know what goes on down here. I see this, and I have the same thing going on in my area. Erie County and Niagara County, Buffalo and Niagara, they would not work together in a million years. I mean, it's competition. If something's good for you, it must be bad for me. That was the mindset, and I suspect that's held back some areas on Long Island as well. That era is over, ladies and gentlemen, because if you don't pull together, you're not going to win the competition, and you've got to explain to your residents why you didn't get over $300 million in the last 4 years. Now, the good news is Long Island did get their act together. You've been enormously successful. Out of the last 4 years, 3 out of 4 times a top winner. Over 300 projects, $350 million that came to incredible projects like Wyandanch Rising. I went to that project and I said, this is the model of how to do it right. And I want to commend, I understand Steve Ballone, this was a project before he became county executive, and Rich Schaefer and I saw this project. I was just said, this is what we need to do. I went over to Ronkonkoma. I've seen all these major projects that are getting funding from the regional councils because your leaders, your representatives, your voices on this council have said, this is what we want. Now, I'm not going to paint a picture and say everything is just fantastic. I hear constantly about the need to make sure we have affordable housing, because as we continue to grow the industries, and I've been out to see, first of all, your spectacular wineries, which I talk about all over. We do have some different stereotypes. When I was in different states, they think all of New York State is just New York City. That's somehow the thought when I'm up in Buffalo. In New York City, folks, I'm not sure they realize how rural the state of New York is. I represented the most Republican district in the state for a while, but it's also the most rural. I mean, we had a lot of farms, good, hardworking people. It's a great area. People are stunned to know that there are actually farms on Long Island when I go elsewhere, and that you've got a robust wine and now a wine, beer, and craft brewery. You know, the craft breweries are just taking off incredibly. So I love to be able to look at regions from sort of my 10,000-foot view of the world and go in and say, I am so impressed that you have this. You need to really lean into that. This is your greatest asset. Nobody else has this. In Long Island, you have so much. I mean, you are a microcosm of not just the state, but the country. You're charming, charming downtowns, which I've walked so many of it. I can't get over the history you have here. I was with the supervisor of Brookhaven, and I had just come from Lockport, New York, my neck of the woods, and we were all excited about having our 150th anniversary, and I did a proclamation, 150. I go to Brookhaven the next day. We celebrated 360 years. 360 years. It's like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. The history that's going on, how you've retained the charm and character of these communities to now, but we have to make sure that that goes on in the future. But also the diversity of jobs. The beaches are spectacular. I've spent many times walking along the sands of Jones Beach and others saying, this is amazing here. So I want to remind you of what you have that's great, but if you don't fight to protect it, it goes away. It's not. It doesn't just happen, right, Eric? I mean, you really have to continue engaging, finding the right balance. And there are so many opportunities. We've got, I look at energy, how important that is in a place like this, or resiliency after a Hurricane Sandy came through. The governor gets that, and I hope you have that appreciation that the governor has spent an enormous amount of time here, particularly post-Sandy, saying, never again will we be caught off guard the way we were and not have the infrastructure improvements that the senator talked about that make us even stronger the next time. Because we learned a lot of lessons. That's one thing we did in that experience. We learned a lot of lessons of how we need to be stronger and more resilient the next time around. And also solar energy is just absolutely taking off. And there's opportunities. I saw solar panels when I was out at Brookhaven Labs. There's a lot of opportunity potential here, but the core of it, I just want to remind you to never, ever compromise or lose your soul. Because once it's gone, and you have to protect these communities and find the right mix and find ways to create a sense of place so we can bring young people living back downtown. And I'm sorry, if your zoning says you can't have housing or residential above your retail in your downtowns, you're missing out on a good game here, folks, because this is what I'm seeing all over the state of New York, where zoning boards and planning boards are saying we need to get new life and vitality and the craft breweries and the distilleries and the jobs to get young people back downtown. We can get them there. We're getting the jobs. There's been 737,000 new jobs since Governor Cuomo was elected, so there's jobs coming. But these young people need a place to live that they can afford. I would say that's probably the greatest challenge, one of the greatest challenges we have here on Long Island. We get our arms around that one. We figure that out. We make that happen. There is no stopping you. There is absolutely no stopping you. So I hope you feel as optimistic as I do, as optimistic as the governor does, that you are sitting on an amazing jewel and a story that I'll continue to tell all over the state of New York as I travel, that Eric, keep it going. Keep this going. I want to come back year after year. I want to make sure that no one loses their resolve to protect and sustain this, not the great history you have, but to take it for future generations. It's on all of you. It's on every person in this room. This is your challenge. Thank you very much.